Ultimately, all radical Islamic movements in the world identify the West writ large, but the United States in particular, as the greatest evil on the earth. And every chance they have, the notion that somehow radical Islam would be comfortable with simply controlling some province in Iraq or Syria is just not borne out by history.
America's enemies aren't connected by geography, they're connected by opportunity. And every time we look inward instead of outward, we hand them exactly that opportunity. Take a look at this great clip over here with Marco Rubio talking to Sean Hannity. We'll watch the video and then talk about it, but first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
I've been talking to the mother of the National Guardsman that's in a hospital here in D.C. who's clinging to life. The issue of the vetting of Afghan nationals. You know, we learned that so many of them had so many warning signs, and I'll put up on the screen the statistics. We took in 76,000. There were over 5,000 that never should have made it into this country. We were assured repeatedly by the Biden administration that they had been vetted. There's no way that many of them could have been vetted. 886 of them, I'll put that on the screen, also are at large in the country as we speak. You put a pause on this, the State Department has, the President has, Kristi Noem has spoken out. Where are we with all of this, and how dangerous is this?
Well, the pause is actually, you know, we've announced it, but in fact, we've been much more careful since we took over, with a lot of pressure on us, by the way, to let more people in. So many of them served as interpreters alongside us in Afghanistan, and so their lives were at risk. So we had a lot of pressure to begin with, but we've slowed that process down from day number one to take an extra look at people. Here's the problem with vetting people. You can't have a perfect vet no matter who that person is, for a couple reasons. The first is you can only vet information that exists, right? So it is possible that in many cases, there are things about these people you just don't know. No matter how much you vet them, you know, you just don't have certain information. And in some parts of the world where there's very limited documentation, very limited, you can't just go out and interview people in many cases because of the presence of the Taliban, et cetera. It becomes very difficult. The second thing you can't vet, you can vet what people have done in the past. You can't vet what people might do in the future. There's another dynamic at play here, and that is you could allow someone into our country who has no history of radicalization. Perhaps they even have worked with you in the past, but they are susceptible to radicalization once they enter the United States because they don't assimilate well, because they fall victim to some of this online propaganda and efforts to radicalize people. And 2 or 3 years later, you find that they have radicalized. That is a threat. That is a real threat. It is a threat for everyone. We have homegrown people in the United States born here that have been radicalized. But I do think it is a higher threat among people that come from cultures and backgrounds that make it harder for them to assimilate once they get into the United States, and that make them vulnerable to Arabic language, for example, propaganda by ISIS or Al-Qaeda or any of these other groups that are looking to radicalize people. So look, the bottom line is there is no effective way to allow hundreds of thousands of people to enter any country in the world and not face consequences. You take 100,000 people from anywhere in the world, and you're going to have some percentage of them that turn out bad. Either they turn into criminals or potentially terrorists. I think that threat is heightened when you come from places that have terrorist movements that would target these people for radicalization once they enter our country. Ultimately, all radical Islamic movements in the world identify the West writ large, but the United States in particular, as the greatest evil on the earth. And every chance they have, the notion that somehow radical Islam would be comfortable with simply controlling some province in Iraq or Syria is just not borne out by history. Radical Islam has shown that their desire is not simply to occupy one part of the world and be happy with their own little caliphate. They want to expand. It's revolutionary in its nature. It seeks to expand and control more territories and more people. And radical Islam has designs openly on the West. On the United States, on Europe, we've seen that progress there as well. And they are prepared to conduct acts of terrorism. In the case of Iran, nation-state actions, assassinations, murders, you name it, whatever it takes for them to gain their influence and ultimately their domination of different cultures and societies. That's a clear and imminent threat to the world and to the broader West, but especially to the United States, who they identify as the chief source of evil on the planet. Okay, the reason why they hate the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the leadership of the UAE, of Bahrain, is because they've allowed the United States to partner with them. That's why they hate them. They consider them infidels for it. They hate Israel. But they also hate America, and they hate anywhere in the world that we have influence. They seek to attack it, including here in the homeland. If you look at the domestic terrorists, at the attacks that have happened here domestically, the overwhelming majority of them have been inspired by radical Islamic viewpoints. And that includes the shooting in the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. That includes the Saudi pilot in Pensacola, my home state, 2 attacks.
You know, there seems to be some misunderstanding. I call it the Trump doctrine. I have my definition of it. Okay, I agree with the president. I don't want America involved in forever wars ever again. I agree with that part. But that does not mean isolationism. There seems to be a group of Americans that misinterpret what the president means. As examples, in his first term, he wiped out the ISIS caliphate. He took out Soleimani on that tarmac. He took out Baghdadi and associates. He dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. You know, I don't know how anybody could think the world's not a safer place by taking out Iran's nuclear sites. That's not isolationism. That is American force used for good. And 12 days later, Israel and Iran stopped fighting.
Well, the way I would describe it, it's not isolationism. It's also not adventurism, which is this argument that others have fallen into, that somehow there's a problem in the world, and the only solution to it is for the United States to send military assets to go solve it. What the president has done is he has, number one, he defines what's in the core national interest of the United States. There's a lot of terrible things happening in the world. Not all of them are at our core national interest. Number two, he defines what the outcome he wants. And number three, he takes actions that are very specific and limited to getting the outcome that's good for our country. So the case in point is Iran. Iran had these nuclear facilities. We know what they were. We've known what they were for a long time. And the president conducted a precise campaign. It wasn't a prolonged war. It was a 24-hour operation. B-2 bombers left the mainland of the United States, came over a defined target, dropped payload, 14 missiles or 14 rockets right into the holes of those facilities. The bunker busters, turned around and went home. And that's it. It didn't involve 5 days of fighting. It didn't involve 15 days of fighting. It didn't involve ground troops or 6 months. He had a goal. The goal was we were going to destroy this nuclear facility. We were going to obliterate it. He went in. He did it. He got out. We were done. We achieved our objective. The objective was the destruction of the nuclear facility, which was achieved without entangling America in something broader than that. That's a great example of the limited and strategic and focused use of American power to achieve something that's in our national interest. It was in our national interest not to have Iran have a nuclear program that can be turned into a weapons program that could one day threaten the United States. And the president found an opportunity to do something about it, and he did it.
Marco Rubio said something on Sean Hannity that people really need to let sink in. Rubio drew a line between unchecked immigration, rising global extremism, and the emboldening of authoritarian regimes like Nicolas Maduro. And he's not fear-mongering, he's mapping the world as it actually is. Let's start with immigration. Rubio pointed out that the border crisis isn't just about people seeking a better life. It's about hostile actors exploiting chaos. He talked about individuals tied to terror groups slipping into the United States, and he's right. Radical Islam doesn't retire. It's just because America is tired of dealing with it. Then he moved on to isolationism. Rubio made it clear, when America pulls back, bad people don't stay home, they advance. Pretending that we can wall ourselves off is how we end up importing the very dangers that we're trying to avoid. And then came Venezuela's dictator Nicolas Maduro. Rubio explained how Maduro's regime is weaponizing migrants, destabilizing our hemisphere, and aligning with Iran, Russia, and Hamas-friendly networks. That's not immigration policy, that's hybrid warfare. It's the 21st century's version of sending soldiers, except you make your enemy pay for it. What ties it all together is one truth that Rubio hammered. If America isn't strong abroad, America becomes vulnerable at home. These issues are not separate. They're different faces of the same threat. So here's the bottom line. Rubio isn't calling for endless wars. He's calling for moral clarity. Secure your borders, secure your allies, confront radical ideologies before they metastasize, and don't pretend that tyrants like Maduro are anything but part of the same global puzzle. America stays safe when America stays engaged. Weakness invites chaos. Strength creates order. So here's the good news. America has faced storms before, and every time we overcame them, not by shrinking back, but by standing tall, united, principled, and morally clear. Strength isn't just a strategy, it's a responsibility. And when America chooses strength, the world becomes safer, freer, and more hopeful. This is our moment to lead again, with wisdom, with courage, and with faith that the future can still be better than the past. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.